Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today it is time to get my TBR in order for the month of August. We will be drawing a new subgenre out of my subgenre bowl. We will be picking a new Kindle roulette selection, and I will be presenting you with 5 books, and you will be voting on the one that you want me to read. So let's get started. I typically like starting these videos now with the subgenre pick because I'm pretty excited about it every month. Just to bring you up to speed, there's over 100 subgenres of genre fiction in this bowl, and each month I draw a new one and commit to reading 3 books from that subgenre. I have already drawn sci-fi romance and paranormal thriller, and now it gets real. Now it gets real. Ladies and gentlemen, we have drawn Arthurian fantasy. Arthurian fantasy would be fantasy novels that sort of are themed similarly to or incorporate the legends of King Arthur's court. Okay. Well, I'm going to really need you guys to come through for me with some Arthurian fantasy recommendations. Let's take a look at what research, if any, I did when it comes to Arthurian fantasy. I don't know what these books are offhand, but when I was searching for books that would fit into this genre project, The Mists of Avalon, The Lost Years, and The Paradise War are books that I noted could potentially be Arthurian fantasies. If you know anything about those, if you want to help me out here, whew, okay. Let me go ahead and show you the 5 books that I have picked for you to select from for the month of August. I always like to do a cute little theme with the 5 books that I pull, or I have recently anyway. And this month's theme is continuing in a series. There are a lot of book ones out there that I have read that I really enjoyed and always had the intention of continuing in a series, but series continuations kind of get pushed back. Like, either I do it then or I don't do it is typically the way that it goes. Either I read books back to back to back or I don't. So that's really difficult if all of the books haven't been released yet. This time, this month, you guys are going to force me to continue on in a series. The first book that I have to consider is Waking Gods by Sylvain Neuvel. This is the book that follows Sleeping Giants, which I really liked. So Sleeping Giants is about a woman who discovers massive human-like sculptures made out of unknown materials buried in the earth. And so the story is about excavating those pieces, putting them together, and see what they do. It's a sci-fi story. The last book ended on a pretty big cliffhanger that I didn't think I was going to be able to deny or walk away from, and yet it's been over a year since I read Sleeping Giants, so it may be time to consider moving on to Waking Gods. I don't really want to tell you what this book specifically is about, because this is the type of series that you definitely don't want to read or research too far ahead, because if you know what book 2 is about before you read book 1, there's some things in book 1 that are not going to have the same sort of effect on you. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut in case you haven't read Sleeping Giants. It was a great book though, so I'm sure the whole series is really good. Next is another book that I can't believe I haven't read yet. This is Mr. Monster by Dan Wells. This is the second book in the John Cleaver series. John Cleaver is a character who is obsessed with serial killers and psychopaths and is a little bit worried that he might have some tendencies. His mother runs a mortuary, funeral home. I'm not sure, but they close to the same thing, but that's the family business. And so he's obsessed with the dead bodies. He's obsessed with death. He's obsessed with what motivates someone to take another life. And while he's going through all these conflicting emotions, victims of violent crime start to turn up in his hometown. So he is fascinated with these killings. He wants to get to know more. It leads him to something totally unexpected. And now that he knows what he knows at the end of the first book, his whole world has changed. So the second book, Mr. Monster, is about another series of mysteries cropping up in his hometown that he's more determined to solve and seek justice for now that he has all of this new information about the world. I'm trying to be a little bit vague because, again, if you know what book 2 is about prior to reading book 1, there are some things in book 1 that won't shock you. And I would really prefer that you read book 1 and be totally shocked if you haven't read it already. I have the next 3 books I don't think fall under the same set of circumstances. I think that I can be a little bit more transparent about what these books are about. First, we have Slow Burn by Kristen Ashley. This is the second book in the Moonlight and Motor Oil series. And currently the author is insisting that this is only a 2-book series. I'm going to always advocate for more books by Kristen Ashley because I do really eat up her books like yummy, yummy candy. The Moonlight and Motor Oil series is about 2 brothers. The story of Johnny was told in The Hookup. That was book 1. Slow Burn is about his brother Tobias. Now Tobias returns to their small hometown, Matlock, Kentucky, and as soon as he returns, he spots Addie, and he instantly decides that she will be the one. One thing you should know about Kristen Ashley heroes in the novels, they know what they want. There's no wishy-washy feelings coming from a Kristen Ashley hero. These are alpha males. These are very strong, secure characters. They know what they want. So while this is going to sound insta-lovey, it's very rarely executed that way. After he makes that decision, he realizes that Addie is actually the sister of his brother Johnny's new woman, new girlfriend. And because of that, because he's happy for his brother, because he doesn't want to screw things up, mess things up the way that he has sometimes done in the past, or at least been made to feel like he's done in the past, he thinks that the best thing for everybody is if he just hightails it back out of town. But Addie, unbeknownst to Tobias, kind of has the same reaction towards him and kind of wants to see where things would go, kind of doesn't want him to be the good guy in this situation. Let me know if this is your pick for August. Next is the most recent series that I started. It is the Timothy Blake series by Jack Heath. The second book is called Just One Bite. The first book in this series, Hangman, if you'll recall, has been slapped with the title, The Most Disturbing Book I've Ever Read. So why not just keep that going? Just One Bite picks up where Hangman left off with the crime-solving cannibal everybody loves, Timothy Blake. Timothy was consulting for the FBI, but that arrangement and situation has gone south. He's motivated by his need for human flesh, and thus he needs a new arrangement. He finds one on the opposite side of the law, on the criminal side this time. He disposes of bodies for an organized crime group, and while doing that work one night, he actually finds a body that was really unexpected. So he disposes of that one too. Disposes of it in a way that only a cannibal would. The FBI call him and ask him if he can lend a hand in the case of a missing professor. And Timothy realizes that the professor is, or was, his dessert. It was my attraction to this story that actually led me to Hangman. And if it weren't for Just One Bite, I never would have had that experience, which I loved. And finally, the last option is Nora Roberts' Of Blood and Bone. This is the second book in the Chronicles of the One series or trilogy. Not real sure. There's at least 3 books out now. I don't know. I haven't really kept up on the releases. I don't know if 3 is the end. I think it is. I think this is going to be a trilogy. And I have to reach back in my brain for a minute. The Chronicles of the One is all about... I remember now. So in the first book, we're following a bunch of survivors of this disease-spreading apocalypse. And of those survivors, you have those that are gifted with magical abilities and those who are not. Those who have magical abilities are finding them a very amplified since the end, quote unquote, end of the world. All of the magical abilities have been amplified, and those who don't have magical abilities are determined to eradicate magic from their new society. If you're someone with magical abilities now, you are in danger. You are immediately judged and discriminated against, and people want you dead. There were 2 people with certain abilities that ended up conceiving a child right around the time that the world was going to poo. And that child is the One. I don't know what the One is or what the One is going to do, but I know that that child is the One. So when book 1 finished, we were left with the mother of the child giving birth and like spending 13 years in hiding. So this book takes place 13 years later. So this book follows Fallon. Fallon is the One. She's coming up on her 13th birthday. She has to leave home. She has to start preparing. She can't be a liability. She goes into training. It's all about her just getting ready for something. We don't know what. I liked book 1, but turns out I believe I'm right that the things and the characters that I love so much in book 1 don't continue in the series. This one seems to be all about Fallon. I don't even know if her mother appears in the book very much. I would have to read it to tell you. It's an interesting story. I mean, I don't often read stories that have fae and witches and all of these magical beings in them. And so I'm digging it. But it's kind of like an urban fantasy, which is a little bit easier for me to follow and a little bit easier for me to enjoy. I reserved a rating for the first book because I felt like the first book didn't at all stand on its own. It couldn't. There was no way. And I knew that I was only getting a partial part of the story. Plus there was so many unanswered questions about whether the characters that I loved would be returning, whether I would ever see them again. And so I just didn't feel great about rating the One, book 1, which is called The One, even though Blood and Bone is all about the One. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I'll be ready to rate after this book. It might be a complete series rating. So just know that if you're interested in hearing my thoughts of Blood and Bone, let me know. Again, the other selections were Just One Bite by Jack Heath, The Slow Burn by Kristen Ashley, Mr. Monster by Dan Wells, and Waking Gods by Sylvain Neuvel. Let me know down in the comment section which one of those is your pick. And now let's do some Kindle roulette. Okay, once again, here we are in my Kindle app on my PC. And I have it in list view so that the scrolling is easier and quicker. And then once the scrolling stops, I will switch it to, I don't know, picture icon view where you can actually see the covers. So let's see, what do I want to sort it? How do I want to sort it this month? Let's sort it by author, Z to A. I don't know, totally random. Why not? And we'll just give it a few random scrolls to see where we end up. I'll go about halfway down on the list or so. And let's see what we have. Well, him has already been read. How would I mark it as read? I don't know. That's already been read. And I'm not rereading it. Oh, what am I doing? Look at these books that I have actual physical copies of and ebooks. I am such a bad person. Okay, The Opposite of You by Rachel Higginson. Messages by John Michael Hillman, Kristen Higgins. The Reason I Jump. The Inner Voice of a 13-year-old boy with autism. Wow. I kind of want to read that. Not going to lie. What else? Carrie Haywood? I don't know, because Carrie Haywood is the author of him, and boy, did that not turn out very well. I feel like doing We Sold Our Souls or An Anonymous Girl is kind of a cheat because I have those in physical form. I'm going to look up actually The Opposite of You real quick and see what that is about. Bear with me. Okay, it's book number 1 in a series of 4 books, The Opposite Attract series. I've sworn off men, all men. Famous last words, right? I'm stubborn and headstrong. Worked my way across Europe and come to 2 conclusions. Now that I'm back home, I'm going to squander my expensive culinary degree on a food truck that caters to the late night drunk crowd. And I'm going to prove the bastard across the plaza that my street food is better than his fussy 5-course monstrosities. Killian Quinn. Here's an interesting tidbit of information. I almost named one of my twins Killian. But I didn't know what a great nickname for Killian would be. I didn't want anybody to call him Kill. Anywho, just a side note. Killian Quinn might be Food and Wine's chef to watch out for. He might have a Michelin star. He might have every food critic in the city wrapped around his 2 large fingers. Why is that detail important? But he's also pretentious and unbearably arrogant and the very opposite of me. So he can keep his unsolicited advice and his late night visits and his cocky smiles. I want none of it or him. I want the opposite. That sounds kind of cute. It's doesn't have a ton of ratings. It is 4.5 stars. So it's between The Opposite of You by Rachel Higginson or The Reason I Jump. This apparently is a one-of-a-kind memoir that demonstrates how an autistic mind thinks, feels, perceives, and responds in ways few of us can imagine. Parents and family members who never thought they could get inside the head of their autistic loved one at last have a way to break through the curious, subtle, and complex life within. I think I'm going to read The Reason I Jump. And while looking up The Opposite of You, I noticed that it is available for free on Audible Escape, so that's something that I can read at any time. Actually listen to at any time. So for the purposes of getting an ebook off my Kindle and because I'm seeking some understanding, I'm going to choose The Reason I Jump. It's a beautiful cover too. Like, seriously, look at this cover. That's so beautiful. I will do my best. I will do my best to read all of these selections. 3 books in Arthurian fantasy. Your pick, my book selection, and my Kindle roulette pick. Thank you so much for watching and for participating. I will see you all very soon.